All right, what is going on, everybody? We got some somewhat breaking news that we received on Friday. It is now, I'm recording this on Monday. I had recorded this video previously, sort of more of a right in the moment reaction. I was a bit under the weather, and I just didn't like the quality of it. I wasn't going to put it out. And then we got some more details, some more coaches speaking about the Mike Brown firing. Mike Brown, if you didn't know, was he was let go. They dismissed him. They amicably walked away from each other. However you want to put it, however they want to sugarcoat it, Mike Brown was fired. That's the breaking news, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. If you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have your own opinions and comments, comment them down below. Um, and if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. Um, we have a fair bit to get through, so we're just gonna hop right in it. Mike Brown was fired um, just after being named Coach of the Year, like 500 something days ago, um, and they fired him because they were, what are they, 12-19, something like that, I believe, right now. Yeah, 12-19, 13-19. Pardon me, one more win. 13-19. Um, this is really just Sacramento on full display of mismanagement, and they've been being mismanaged since the Marcus Cousins era. Um, you fire your coach of the year, right? Well, let's dial the clock back just really quick. Um, this offseason, you got DeMar DeRozan, who I don't think I've ever said it on here because I haven't talked about the Kings because I just thought, oh, they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna figure it out. Let me not overreact, right? I reacted to some other teams early in the season. I didn't want to repeat that. I was like, oh, they'll turn around. And they never really turned it around. Going back, though, they get DeMar DeRozan, who doesn't fit the system, who is a defensive liability, who kind of messes up their pace and space that they were trying to run because he takes 3 pointers, he just doesn't want to take them, and he messes up the spacing a lot. And I've never been the biggest DeMar DeRozan fan, um, but I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe, hey, he'll figure it out. Mike Brown will figure it out. Mike Brown's a good coach. Mike Brown is I see him as a culture setter and somebody who can bring you somewhat far in the playoffs. I don't think he's the greatest coach ever. He I don't think he's ever been given the opportunity to do that, to prove that he is more than just a culture setter. I don't think he's been given the opportunity to do that, and I thought he was going to be able to get in Sacramento, and they just didn't. They just didn't give it to him. And there's a lot of stuff that has come out afterwards. I'm gonna get through it right now. Um, the Kings reportedly they let him lead a practice. They let him speak to media, and then I guess as he was in the car going to the airport to fly to L.A., he got the call and he was fired, which is crazy. Which is crazy to let a guy lead a practice, speak to media, and then fire him. Crazy, crazy stuff. Um, this is all coming off the heels of, I guess, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that De'Aaron Fox either wanted roster improvements or trade him. That was his ultimatum. Um, and the Kings were looked at, not the Kings were looking at, supposedly, the Heat has a trade suitor, the Rockets is a trade suitor, the Spurs is a trade suitor for Fox. What happens now that Mike Brown is gone? The interim head coach is somebody already on the staff. Um, De'Aaron Fox came out previously. This was months ago, maybe even a year ago, saying, "I don't want another coach." In the sense of he just wants Mike Brown there. Mike Brown's a great coach. He likes him. Now that he's gone, does just Fox request a trade outright? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Um, To get into my feelings though, before I get into some of the coaches' feelings about it, like I said, Mike Brown is a decent coach. I like him. I think every stop that he's made, whether it had been in LA or with Cleveland with LeBron or whatever, he's coached some great players. Um, he's also done a fine job being a interim head coach when Steve Kerr wasn't healthy or whenever. And when he's been an assistant coach, I think he's been a decent assistant coach. Um, I think it's just a matter of he's never been able to spread his wings, so to speak, and given a full like 4 year window to do something. At least recently. Um, I think he, I think his destiny is just an assistant coach. Now, in my original video, I had a thought. This was a crazy thought. This is one of my crazier thoughts. Was uh, Greg Popovich, the head coach of the Spurs, had a bit of a medical problem. He's better now. He wants to get back on the bench and coach. Um, these things sort of line up in a way where, hey, maybe Greg Popovich looks at it through a different lens now, finishes this year as the head coach, and then steps down because the guy's like 80 something, you know? And then maybe a person like Mike Brown can step in who's been on the Spurs coaching staff, um, who's familiar with the Spurs, can step in. Um, Now, that's not a guarantee. There's obviously other people the Spurs could look at to take over to take over instead of Mike Brown. I mean, many disciples of Greg Popovich that would be eyeing the job. But I think just immediately off this, I think Mike Brown takes the rest of the year off. I don't think he's on another coaching staff this year. Maybe do some TV, maybe do some interview stuff. I don't think he does anything crazy this year. Um, and I think Mike Brown deserves a chance to be a real coach and not be interfered with by the organization, by all the players seem to like him. Um, but I think he deserves another chance. Some people say he's overrated. Some people say he just isn't worth it. I think he deserves a chance. I don't think it's right that he's been pulled around so much. I think he's won two coaches of the years, right? When he won it with Cleveland, with LeBron and that team, and then he was fired somewhat in a similar situation to this one, where just 500 days, 12 months, 18 months after you win Coach of the Year, you're fired just because it hasn't gone right for the first couple games of the year. And it's a bit of a different situation because you are in the West and you can't make up that ground. And once you're deep in that, deep in the standings, it's really hard to dig yourself out, especially when you got teams like the Rockets, the Spurs, that are young and hungry. And I think the Kings have lost that young and hungry feeling because they settled for DeMar DeRozan, and DeMar DeRozan is what he is, and I don't think I think he's a floor setter. He's not a ceiling raiser. DeMar DeRozan sets the floor, but it doesn't raise the ceiling of any team he's been on, and I believe that he brought the Spurs up a little bit after losing Kawhi as much as he could. Chicago, they were a play-in bottom of the conference team. That's their floor. In going back to Toronto, they were a semifinal, conference final out. And now in Sacramento, they are just in the middle of the pack. DeMar DeRozan does not um, move your ceiling. And to that point, this was a report that came out. Um, doesn't even say by who, but reportedly, Mike Brown asked DeMar DeRozan to come off the bench before getting fired. Do I think that's why I got fired? No, but that was something that was floating around. Um, Now to get to some of not just my thoughts, because my thoughts are somewhat irrelevant, but to some coaches around the NBA who had something to say about Mike Brown getting fired. The first one is Steve Kerr, and I quote: "It just seems so shocking when a guy gets unanimous coach of the year half a year ago. And when you think about it, where that franchise was before Mike got there, it's really shocking, Steve Kerr said. Um, Rick Carlisle from the Indiana Pacers has said, and I quote, if you look at the job that he did and the turnaround that he had, it's just really hard to believe that this is that decision was made. Pardon me. End quote. Um, Jamal Mosley, coach of the Pistons now. He compiled a record of 107-88. While he was there, he changed a bit of that culture in what he was doing. And lastly, you have championship coach Mike Malone. When you win, it's Fox and Sabonis. When you lose, it's on Brown. That's how it works. I'm not surprised he was fired because I was fired by the same person, and that is 100% facts from Mike Brown, from Mike Malone to Mike Brown about the Kings front office and all the stuff they have going on, the owner and everything. Um, Now to talk about the Kings a little bit. Where do the Kings go from here? Um, I either say you blow it up right now, middle of the season, have a fire sale, get rid of Fox, get rid of DeMar. Um, DeMar for Jimmy Butler. Who says no? Let Jimmy Butler go there for a year, um, play out the rest of his contract, remain somewhat competitive for the team, for the just because you always need to sell your fans on something. You say, "Oh, we traded DeMar for Jimmy, and Jimmy's here for 2 years, year and a half, whatever." Right? Jimmy just wants that extra year on his contract, um, and then you can flip him the following year. But you trade Fox for Jalen Green and somebody else from the Rockets. Keeps a bonus, keep it a young team ish, and keep them a little bit competitive, but blow it up perhaps. Or you could go the route of just ride this season out with the interim coach and see what he can do. Do you just set up your fans for failure? Maybe. It's not what I would do. I would just try to reset it altogether almost, and then eventually have to trade Sabonis and all that. But um, I touched on at the beginning. I just want to touch here. The Kings are a mess. They've always been a mess. They had everybody tricked with the light, the beam, and all this fun stuff they were doing, and they had you guys tricked there for a minute when they had Fox, Sabonis, Malik Monk, um, and you thought it was good. And y'all have to remember, it's the same guy running the team. It's the same owner, and if he if it's the same guy running, it's gonna be the same mess. And it's unfortunate for Kings fans because this era seems like it's already coming to an end before it even got started. And I enjoyed this era of Kings basketball. Um, they were a fun team to watch. I would take the over on De'Aaron Fox getting traded now because I just don't see why you would want to play for this organization ever again. Um, and to touch on it just a little more, is it all DeMar DeRozan's fault? No, but the team should have seen the writing on the wall and seeing that DeMar isn't the answer for any of your problems. The only problem that he could have solved was taking the ball out of Fox's hand and not having have Fox do as much. But this team is at its best when Fox is doing the most, when Sabonis is doing the most. So I don't see why you would want to bring a guy in that's a ball hog, that takes an inefficient shot, that does all these things that for some teams could be positive. Don't get me wrong. What DeMar DeRozan can do in a certain amount of time is great. I don't want him running my whole offense and taking shots away from my homegrown all star And a guy I traded for when he wasn't at his peak in Sabonis, who when he is at his peak is a triple double monster, you know. I just don't want that. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. And they thought the good idea was to fire Mike Brown. Let that sink in. You had a bunch of other options this this offseason to improve the team. Because when you are a team that has this success of the Kings, those players that you take to the playoffs, like Fox, like Sabonis, they love the feeling of that, of getting there. But eventually that feeling wears off and you need to improve your team in a drastic way to get to a conference finals, to get to a finals. That's how you keep players around. That's how you encourage players to stay. That's how you get other people to want to come to the team. Hopefully more than the likes of DeMar DeRozan, but they thought DeMar DeRozan was the answer. Nevertheless, this was a terrible move, and I feel bad for Kings fans, and I feel bad for De'Aaron Fox. I feel bad for everybody involved on this team because this is not the sort of ending that was supposed to happen. Um, it was supposed to be like Fox leaving, and then like then it goes all downhill. Not the messy way that the coach gets fired, then Fox gets traded, then all this stuff comes tumbling down. But I will be keeping my eyes on the situation closely because it's just so entertaining to see a dumpster fire. You just can't look away. Um, and yeah, so if you guys want to keep up to date on the King stuff, on any other NBA news, you know where to get it right here. If you like what I say, like the video. If you have your own opinions, comment them down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. Ignore the squeaking chair in the background. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.